Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary to share another contemplative focus with you today. It's been a while, so I'm a little rusty right today, but we'll get through this just fine. And the focus of this contemplation is simple. It's what's your story? Wherever we go, whatever we do, whenever we try to, say, get a job or sign up for something, we automatically are confronted with filling out a form, and on that form is essentially our story, isn't it? Where we're born, how old are we, what's our sex, what's our experience, and so forth and so on, up to our present moment. So, and there's a reason why we find ourselves lost in all these stories about who we are, unaware of our true original nature. Consciousness, we are consciousness, intends on fully being itself. And with this intention, consciousness created the relative field of all experience. Then we, consciousness, created the ego and the ego-driven mind to create the illusion of separation, to fully experience what it is not, what we are not, which is what most of the world is doing today, very much is experiencing what it is not. When it is full in this experience of what it is not, the awakening impulse actualizes. In this post-awakening cycle, consciousness progressively dismantles the egoic illusory database and ever more fully experiences the truth of itself as one blissful consciousness fulfilling its primary intention. The primary intention in consciousness is to fully be itself. To be itself, it must experience itself, and since all experience is relative, it creates the relative field as the arena of all experience. In this arena of all experience, it creates the instrument of ego and the ego-driven mind to create this illusion of separation. This is the theater of where we all experience what we are not. And then when we're fulfilled in this cycle of what we call involutionary experience, then we actualize that momentum to bring us to the other direction, to fully realize who we really are and what we really are. In my experience, I know that before that impulse actualized in myself, I had no clue. I only had a sense that there was something more to life, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I remember studying or playing with philosophy when I was in high school with friends that were interested in such things. I remember my response to religion when I was exposed to religion, and all of these belief systems that I encountered lacked something. I just couldn't quite figure out what it was. And so the conceptual world never fulfilled anything inside myself, and so I just eventually lost interest in it and went into the world to explore it myself. And as I did, I continually discovered all the things I didn't want to do or wasn't interested in, and yet there was something in me that kept driving me to keep looking and to keep moving on. I mean, I was fully indulged in my story at that time, too. That's all I knew, and that's all I responded to. I said, how are you? Who are you? And I would just respond by filling out that form for somebody appropriate to the context it was happening in. So, who we are, our whole existence as a human being, in other words, is a story. This is the creation that allows us as consciousness to fully be who we are not. And when we're fulfilled in this experience, when we've had enough of the suffering and the questioning and the disappointments and the lack of fulfillment that we have as human beings, then we will actualize this impulse. And for me, that meant an awakening experience where I fully experienced who I truly was in a moment. I had a long way to go after that. I'm still journeying that experience because just like the I am not experience, the I am experience is not something that unfolds in a moment. It's many lifetimes of gradually bringing yourself to that because it's a huge shift and it's not intended to happen in just one lifetime. So, I mean, it does happen in one lifetime, but only after you've had many lifetimes building yourself up to that point, just like you built yourself up to the point of actualizing the intention to fully be who you are instead of who you are not. So it takes time. It's lifetime after lifetime that we journey ourselves as human beings and with these false notions about being responsible. To be responsible, you have to be in control. And if you're in control, you should be able to wake up anytime you want to. But how can you wake up when you have no idea who and what you are? So, from this perspective, from a spiritual perspective, it's all very silly. We go through life and taking on responsibility for things we could never be responsible for. We have events happen in our lives that are like car accidents. I've had 2 or 3 car accidents in my life, and I had no idea why. And I was basically a very good driver for the most part, except for sometimes. And even in those times, I didn't have any accidents, but when they came just out of the blue. And so you really don't know what experience is waiting for you in the next moment. And I have been fully aware of this for a long time simply because I've had some experiences like the car accidents and so forth that popped up out of nowhere, no matter what I tried to do to be aware and conscious when I was driving. Circumstances changed all of that in a twinkling of an eye. And so we really don't know what's going to happen in the next moment, and we don't remember much of what has happened in our past. And yet we are here, and we have a mind, and our mind is continually interpreting our experience and trying to bring us to some explanation as a way of understanding. But is it really understanding? It's just more information. Excuse me. And as we are living in the age of information in these days, and there is so much information, and with AI that has just exploded exponentially, is the world any better off? Are we approaching any more truthful understanding of who and what we are and who and what life is? It's obvious that we're not. We seem to be getting farther away the more we try to build on our database of beliefs to get there. No resolution will happen until we have that awakening impulse and experience the truth of who we are, so that we know from our experience, not from anything we ever believed, who and what we are and what life really is. And once you do, then the object of your life, or at least my journey, has been simply to get back to that experience as a constant. Once you've had it, it is so blissful and so fulfilling that nothing else can even closely compare to it. So, but it's a journey, and it's not an easy journey. First, you have to understand the journey, how to take the journey, where do you go, who do you see, what do you, I heard about meditation, and I explored meditation back in the day when there was no internet. I just was reading Ram Dass when I had my experience, so I used him as my reference, and I practiced meditation the way he described it in his book, Be Here Now. And I did that for some time. I changed my diet. I went through all the things that people go through and when they initially have that awakening experience, because it's it's so powerful that it just takes over your whole life. You don't want anything else because nothing else can compare to that. Huh? And so you try to do what you can do to get back to it. And in my case, I experienced, practice, I should say, several different forms of meditation. And I went through many, many years of doing this as I was living in the world. And it was a real challenge to do this simply because having a job, paying your rent, cooking your food, in other words, the daily demands of everyday life doesn't leave you a whole lot of time to meditate. Although I didn't need a lot of time, but the atmosphere and the context that you're living in is not so much, is not necessarily conducive to meditation. You grab 30 minutes here or 15 minutes there, and you're trying to do something in a short time to get to an experience that you had without knowing why you had it. And so this was kind of the cycles that I went through for many years until I came here to synchronicity. After I wore myself out trying to do it myself, and I was finally ready to accept having a master in my life to guide me and teach me and to help me get to where I wanted to go. And when I was ready, the master showed up, and I did receive an invitation to come to Synchronicity and be a full-time staff resident here, which is not something my ego wanted at all because it was death to the ego, or at least as much as it can die in any one lifetime. And so that was that. And that's probably similar to, that's a similar story to a lot of people who are in the same or a similar place where I am in my evolutionary context. Huh? We're all different. Our feet are where they are from our past experience. We are either fully unaware or we're on our way to being aware. And where we are in that journey depends on the experiences we've had in our past to bring ourselves to where we are now. And that's consciousness evolving itself. That's consciousness waking up. That's consciousness realizing its primary intention of fully being itself. It happens when it happens, and there's nothing you can do but say yes in any given lifetime to that process. And you will, because you've built up the momentum and the experiences that drive you towards that end, huh? And that's it. Once you've had the taste, you're hooked. You can't help it. You're a junkie for the truth, and you won't settle for anything less. You'll try your best. And I'm sure we go through many, many, many lifetimes of trying to get there and having more experiences of that, yet not fully actualized yet. So it's not something that it's something that you could be very judgmental about. You could judge yourself in all different ways, but if you've meditated long enough and hard enough, you know that that's just more of the story building. That's not true. There's a reason why you are where you are, but you are where you are, and that is something that should be celebrated, and that's something you should be very grateful for. If you are a meditator and you've been led, if you've been driven in yourself to meditate and to come into a lifestyle where actualizing your truth is something that you do every day, you're well on your way, and that's something to be celebrated. It's something you should acknowledge yourself for. It's something you should obviously continue. I do. I meditate at least once, mostly twice a day. And I do that because I get thirsty for the experience I have in my meditation. So that's beyond my story. That urge to go meditate now is something that is fulfilling and pleasing to me, and it's not something I ever want to stop doing. So that's my story as it is today. Huh? And I hope your story is well on its way as well, and it probably is if you're watching this at all. So until next Monday, when I'll be back again with another contemplative focus, I bid you farewell, and I hope that you have a blissful week between now and then. Thank you so much for watching. Until next Monday.